Over a decade ago, Peloton revolutionized home fitness with live classes. Now, Aviron is trying to revolutionize it again with video games. And after 6 months of working out with Aviron, I'll show you whether the Aviron Bike can actually build habits that stick, or if this machine will become yet another $2,000 laundry rack. So this is the FitBike S, and it's one of 2 models they make. I'll show you which model is better later, but first, let me show you what makes this completely different than any exercise bike you've tried before. Because whether or not different is good is going to depend completely on your unique psychology. For some people, live classes on cycling machines like Peloton work great. I've got no beef with Peloton. In fact, when they first launched, I think they shook up the home exercise market with an incredibly innovative idea. For $50 a month, you could skip driving to the gym, and if you pushed really hard, you might even get your name called out by the intense lady on the screen. Good boy. This business model exploded their growth during the pandemic, but a lot has changed since then, and now Peloton is struggling to retain subscribers. And I don't even think it's their fault. I think TikTok and social media doom scrolling have given us tiny little baby peanut attention spans, completely hijacking our brain's dopamine reward system. And I hate to say it, but for many of us, on-screen classes alone just aren't engaging enough anymore. But you know what has never failed to keep me engaged and pissing away valuable time? Video games. And that's kind of where Aviron comes in. Because what if your addiction to dopamine in video games could be leveraged into a healthy exercise habit? If you're someone who gets bored easily and struggles to work out daily, Aviron could be your last best hope at consistency. And I say could be because Aviron is definitely not for everyone, but we'll touch on that later. On the plus side, Aviron really does have the most varied library of activities to keep you focused and engaged while cycling. They're obviously most famous for their games, but they also offer head-to-head competitions, virtual trails, media streaming, and more. Plus, leaderboards, gamified progression systems, and achievements to give users something to work toward. And if you're trying to talk your wife into letting you buy this instead of Peloton, you can tell her that Aviron also has classes, they're just pre-recorded. Anyway, I've been using Aviron's machines for over 6 months now, so it's time to share my real-world experience with the Aviron Bike. I'm not gonna pretend that this machine has turned me into a cycling fanatic overnight, not a big cardio guy. But I will say, time definitely flies by a lot faster while using Aviron. And I've always been someone who prefers to exercise alone, so I've never been a fan of group classes, but Aviron's competitions actually allow me to enjoy the competitive aspect of exercise without the dreaded social anxiety of having to talk to strangers at 8 a.m. But the real selling point is obviously Aviron's games, and my personal favorite game so far is actually one of the simplest they have. It looks a bit like Guitar Hero, but it has you speeding up or slowing down to hit certain RPMs, trying to hit bonuses and avoid penalty. Pretty simple, but I think it's a lot of fun. And there are plenty of other games that will have you fight off pirates, blast aliens, go fishing, play arcade-style games like Pong and Brick Breaker, you name it. And they've all got progression systems like unlockable achievements, power-ups, and avatars to collect with in-game currency. And despite the limited controller input, these games do actually require a bit of strategy. For example, you could generate more power by upping the resistance and pushing down harder on the pedals during a tense boss battle, or you can quickly lower the resistance to slow down and take a rest when it makes sense to do so. This constant flow of high intensity moments and strategic rest periods really does help each exercise fly by while encouraging you to push harder than you might otherwise. So the workouts I've been getting from it are legit. For me personally, there was no one game I fell in love with, but the novelty of there being so many different things to do made it feel like I was never doing the same thing every single day. One day I'd play a game, the next day I'd take a class, the next day I'd find someone to compete against online, then maybe I'd ride a virtual reality route. And for an ADHD brain like mine, that constant novelty is essential to staying consistent. So, did the Aviron Bike actually help me to build habits that stick? Honestly, yes and no. I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't use it every single day, but here's what did change. When I used it, I actually finished my workouts. I didn't get bored and bail after 5 minutes like I normally do. And more importantly, I kept coming back to it, not out of discipline, but because I actually wanted to see what challenge I could take on that day. For me, that's huge. That's the difference between another piece of equipment gathering dust and something I'll actually be able to use long term. So overall, I personally found a lot of value in the Aviron Bike for forming good exercise habits, but a few things did stand out to me as red flags. First, let's talk about the games. They're fun, but they're not Call of Duty, they're not Skyrim. Think mobile game quality, which honestly makes sense when you remember you're controlling everything just by your pedaling speed and 2 resistance buttons. I still found them engaging enough to keep me coming back, but you definitely need to set expectations. Second, there is a subscription fee, about $30 a month to access the games, classes, and competitions. You can still use the bike without it for basic pedaling or streaming Netflix or other, media apps. But in my opinion, why would you even buy a $2,000 gaming bike if you're not gonna pay the extra for the games? It's still cheaper than Peloton's $50 a month, but a lot of people think it's free once you buy it, and it's not. There is definitely a subscription involved. Third, if you're a hardcore cyclist who cares about the most realistic road feel possible, this probably isn't for you. The touring model, which I'll show you in a minute, does get closer to that real road feel with its chain drive and freewheel, but at the end of the day, this bike is definitely designed for gamers who want to exercise, not cyclists who happen to like games. If you're training for races or obsessed with cadence optimization, you'd probably be better off with a more serious cycling-focused machine. And finally, because the Aviron Bike is a much newer product than their rower, the community around it is a lot smaller than Aviron's rowing machines. So if you're trying to play multiplayer, it can sometimes take longer to find online partners, especially if you're playing one of the less popular games at like a weird time of day. Now, this should get better as more people buy the bike, but honestly, the rower is still where it's at for fast matchmaking lobbies and instant competition. But I can show you that machine later on. For now, let's quickly break down which Aviron bike is actually right for you, because they've got a few options and you don't want to make the wrong choice. By the way, this is not a sponsored video, but if you do decide to buy any of these machines, I'll drop a discount link down in the description that I'll keep updated with the best deal possible. Using these links may help support the channel at no cost to you, which I greatly appreciate. So there's the FitBike S, which is the one I have here, and then there's the FitBike Touring. The S model uses a belt drive system, which makes it ultra quiet, so it's perfect if you live in an apartment or don't want to wake anyone up, like if you got a baby at home or something. It's also designed with a wider pedal stance, which keeps your hips and knees in a more natural position, making longer rides way more comfortable. The Touring model uses a commercial-grade chain drive instead, which gives you that authentic road bike feel with better grip and traction. The pedals on that one also coast when you stop pedaling like they would on a real bike, so it's not just constant resistance. But the Touring model is also noisier and slightly more expensive than the S model. To make your decision really simple, I would say get the FitBike S if you prioritize silence and comfort, live in an apartment, have a sleeping baby, or honestly just don't care about road bike authenticity. And I'd say get the Touring if you're coming from actual outdoor cycling and want that chain drive road feel rather than a totally silent ride. For most people, I'd probably just recommend going with the S. It's $200 cheaper, it's quieter, and honestly, the road feel doesn't really matter when you're blasting aliens in space. But the most important decision of all isn't which model you buy, it's whether or not the Aviron Bike is actually a smart investment for you. Remember at the beginning when I said this all comes down to your unique psychology? Well, here's who I think should and shouldn't buy an Aviron Bike. I think you should buy the Aviron Bike if you've tried Peloton or gym classes and just couldn't stick with them, if you prefer working out alone from home rather than in a class setting, if you're motivated by progression systems, achievements, games, and unlockables, or if you tend to get bored easily and crave novelty to stay engaged. Where my ADHD people at? You probably should not buy the Aviron Bike if you thrive on live instructor energy and need human accountability, if you hate screens and just want a simple analog workout experience, or if you were expecting AAA console quality gaming. These are fun, mobile-ish games, not Skyrim. It really just all comes down to what kind of reward system your brain responds best to. For me personally, I'm not gonna lie and say this turned me into a cycling fanatic, but it did do something important. It made me actually want to come back. And for someone with ADHD who gets bored of everything after 2 weeks, that is a huge step in the right direction. Look, if you love classes and human energy, stick with Peloton. But if you're a gamer who isn't thrilled about a skinny blonde girl on a bicycle yelling at you, this could be your best shot at consistency. And honestly, the FitBike S is pretty similarly priced to Peloton, but the subscription is about $20 less per month. Plus, Aviron does have some good sales going on right now, which will stack with my discount code down in the description below. So if you're thinking about getting one, don't sleep on it. You can always take advantage of their 30-day risk-free trial if you decide it's not for you. But if you're still on the fence and thinking maybe the Aviron rower is better for you instead, I've got a full review of that one too. It's right here. It's got an even bigger multiplayer community and hits more muscle groups. So depending on your goals, it might be the better move.